The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the mahogany tables of La Bernardine, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. Robert Ashford III adjusted his platinum cufflinks and checked his Patek Philippe watch for the third time in 10 minutes. The merger deal that would make him one of the wealthiest men in America was supposed to be signed tonight, but his business partner was running late. At 62, Robert had everything money could buy. The penthouse overlooking Central Park, the fleet of luxury cars, the private jet, the vacation homes in the Hamptons and Aspen. But tonight, something felt different. A restlessness had been gnawing at him for weeks, a hollow feeling that no amount of success could fill. "Good evening, sir. I'm Sophia, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." The voice was warm, with a slight accent he couldn't quite place. Robert looked up from his phone to see a young woman in her early 20s, perhaps 24, with kind brown eyes and dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore the restaurant's standard black uniform, but there was something about her presence that commanded attention, a quiet dignity that seemed out of place in the service industry. "The usual Mr. Ashford?" she asked with a professional smile. "Dom Perignon, Ardingilin, and the tasting menu?" Robert nodded absently, already turning back to his phone. He'd been coming to this restaurant for 15 years, and the staff knew his preferences by heart. But as Sophia turned to leave, something caught his eye, a glint of gold on her right hand. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice sharper than intended. Sophia stopped and turned back, her expression curious but patient. "Yes, sir?" Robert's eyes fixed on her hand. On her ring finger was a vintage gold signet ring with a small emerald stone set in the center. It was an unusual piece, not the kind of jewelry a waitress would typically wear, especially not one who couldn't be making more than minimum wage plus tips. "That ring," he said slowly, his voice barely above a whisper.
Where did you get it?"
Sophia looked down at her hand, then back at him with a slight smile. "Oh, this. My mother has the same ring. She gave it to me before she passed away last. It's been in our family for generations." The words hit Robert like a physical blow.
Oh.
The blood drained from his face, and his hands began to tremble.
Oh.
The restaurant around him seemed to fade away, the sounds of clinking glasses and quiet. Conversation becoming distant and muffled. "Your mother," he repeated, his voice cracking. "What was her name?" Sophia's smile faltered slightly. There was something in his tone, in the way he was staring at her, that made her uncomfortable. "Elena," she said cautiously. "Elena Vasquez." "Sir, are you all right? You look pale." Robert's chair scraped against the floor as he stood abruptly, his legs unsteady. Other diners turned to look as he gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white with tension. "Elena Vasquez," he whispered, and the name seemed to tear something open inside his chest. "Ill, sir. Should I call someone?" Sophia asked, genuine concern. Replacing her professional demeanor, "Do you need medical attention?" But Robert wasn't listening. He was 22 years old again, standing in a small cafe in Barcelona, watching a beautiful young woman with dark hair and eyes that sparkled with life serve him coffee and practice her English. Elena, who had worn that same ring on her finger, who had told him it was her grandmother's, who had promised to wait for him when he returned to Spain after finishing his MBA. Elena, who had been 3 months pregnant when he left, though neither of them knew it at the time. "Sit down," Sophia said firmly, her voice cutting through his memories. "You're scaring the other customers." Robert collapsed back into his chair, his hand shaking as he reached for his water glass. The weight of 40 years of buried guilt came crashing down on him. He had returned to Barcelona 6 months later, ready to propose, ready to start the life he'd dreamed of during those magical summer months. But Elena was gone. Her roommate had told him she'd moved away, left no forwarding address, wanted nothing to do with him. He'd spent months trying to find her, hiring private investigators, calling every Vasquez in Spain. Nothing. Eventually, he'd given up, convinced himself that she had simply moved on, found someone else. He'd thrown himself into building his business empire, using his heartbreak as fuel for his ambition. But now, looking at this young woman who had Elena's eyes, Elena's gentle smile, Elena's ring, he realized the truth. Elena hadn't abandoned him. She had been protecting their child. "What year were you born?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Sophia stepped back slightly, alarm flickering in her eyes. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't think that's appropriate, please." Robert interrupted, and there was such raw desperation in his voice that Sophia paused. "I knew your mother. A long time ago. Please, just tell me when you were born." Sophia hesitated, her training warring with her instincts. There was something in this man's face, something broken and desperate, that made her want to help. "March 15th, 1999, she said quietly. Robert closed his eyes, doing the math. March 1999. 9 months after he'd left Barcelona in June 1998. 9 months after their last night together. When they'd walked along the beach at sunset, and she'd told him she loved him in 3 different languages. "God," he whispered. And when he opened his eyes, there were tears streaming down his face. "Alina, my Alina." Sophia's eyes widened as understanding began to dawn. "You're saying you knew my mother, loved her," Robert said, his voice breaking. "I was 22 and I thought I had all the time in the world. Came back for her, Sophia. I came back, but she was gone." "That's impossible," Sophia said, but her voice lacked conviction. My mother never mentioned. She said my father was a Spanish man who died before I was born." Robert laughed bitterly. "She was protecting you. From me. From this world." He gestured around the expensive restaurant. "She knew what I would become. What I had already started to become." Sophia pulled out a chair and sat down across from him, her professional composure cracking. "Tell me about her. About when you knew her." And so Robert told her about the summer of 1998, when he'd been a young American studying international business in Barcelona. He told her about the small cafe near the university, where Alina worked, how she'd helped him with his Spanish, while he helped her with her English. He told her about their long walks through the Gothic Quarter, their picnics in Park Gale, the way she'd laugh at his terrible pronunciation, and how her eyes would light up when she talked about her dreams of traveling the world she wanted. "To be a teacher," Robert said, his voice soft with memory. She was studying education, working 3 jobs to pay for school. She was the strongest person I'd ever met, and the kindest. She had this way of making everyone around her feel like they mattered. Sophia wiped away tears she hadn't realized were falling. She did become a teacher. Elementary school. She taught 2nd grade for 20 years before she got sick. Robert's voice was sharp with concern. "Cancer," Sophia said quietly. "She fought it for 2 years, but ... She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Robert felt like he was drowning. Not only had he missed his daughter's entire life, but he'd also missed Elena's death. The woman he'd never stopped loving, even after convincing himself he'd moved on, had died alone while he was attending charity galas and board meetings. "She talked about you," Sophia said suddenly. "Not by name, but she used to tell me stories. About a summer in Barcelona when she was young, about an American boy who made her laugh and taught her to dream bigger. She said it was the happiest time of her life." Robert's composure finally cracked completely. The tears came harder now. 40 years of suppressed emotion pouring out in the middle of one of New York's most prestigious restaurants. Other diners were staring, but he didn't care. Nothing mattered except the young woman sitting across from him, wearing his grandmother's ring, the ring he'd given to Alina on their last night together. Not knowing she would treasure it forever, I gave her that ring, he said through his tears. It was my grandmother's. I wanted her to have something to remember me by. Sophia looked down at the ring with new eyes. She never took it off. Even when she was dying, she wouldn't let the nurses remove it. She said it was her most precious possession. She raised you alone. Sophia nodded. She never married. Never. Even dated seriously. She said she'd already had the love of her life. She paused, studying Robert's face. Was that ... Was that you? I thought so, Robert said. I hoped so, but I was young and stupid and I thought I could have everything. I thought I could build my career first and then come back for love. I didn't know ... that she was pregnant, Sophia finished. Had known I would have stayed, I would have given up everything. Sophia was quiet for a long moment, processing everything she'd learned. Finally, she spoke. She used to say that some people are meant to be together in one lifetime, and others are meant to love each other across time. She said the heart knows the difference. But Robert looked at his daughter, and saw Alina in every feature the same gentle eyes, the same thoughtful expression, the same inner strength that had drawn him to her mother all those years ago. "What do we do now?" he asked. As Sophia walked away to tend to her other tables, Robert sat alone with his thoughts. Tomorrow, he would call his lawyer and change his will. Tomorrow, he would start the process of creating a foundation in Elena's name, dedicated to helping young mothers get their education. Tomorrow, he would begin the most important project of his life, building a relationship with his daughter. But tonight, he would go home and dig through his old photo albums looking for the pictures of Alina he'd never been able to throw away. He would remember the summer that had changed his life, and he would thank whatever force had brought Sophia to his table tonight. The ring on her finger caught the light as she moved through the restaurant, and Robert smiled. Alina had kept her promise after all. She had waited for him in the most beautiful way possible by raising their daughter to be everything she had been: strong, kind, and full of love. The merger deal was forgotten. The important business had already been concluded. After 40 years, Robert Ashford III had finally come home. As he left the restaurant that night, Robert looked back to see Sophia laughing with another customer, her face bright with the same joy he remembered from her mother. The ring on her finger seemed to glow in the soft light, a bridge between past and present, between love lost and love found, and for the first time in 40 years, Robert Ashford III felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be.